Hello Chris, this is the testing for your GS430 2005. It's a 5-speed. Brand new built engine harness for an IS300 02 to 05 swap. So obviously you've opted for a completely brand new built harness. So we'll quickly cut over so you can see the build process and see exactly how all this looks underneath. So we'll do that now and be back in a second. Right, so now that you've seen all that, so what we're going to do now is we're going to run through quite a few tests, but first of all I'm going to go through the harness itself, how it's laid out, where everything mounts onto the engine, just so you know exactly what happens when you get it on your side. So we've got the grommet that fits into the ECU box over there, obviously because the engine's over here and not in here. I've obviously just got it hanging a bit there over there. You've got your 3 plugs that plug into your ECU from the main engine harness. You've got your body plugs over here which go to your patch harness. I'm adapting from an IS200 to an IS300, so that's why you see all these little adapter plugs over here. Obviously that's not what yours is going to look like. You've got your plugs over there, they're going to bolt into your plug into your 3 body plugs over there. And then this is just going to go straight into your 2 ECU plugs that you will have normally like that sitting inside your ECU box there. Okay, so you just got to plug in the 5 plugs for the ECU, the 2 plugs into the patch harness, and the 3 plugs into the body. All right, so that's pretty much it for this side over here. Then obviously you come outside the ECU box and then you're going to make your way to over here. Now what we advise is put a little P-clip on this little bolt hole over here. You'll see there's an earth as well for the coils on this bank over here, but that'll then keep this in place over there. And then from there, it's going to split, and you've got the oil control valve over there, and then you've got the front harness section which goes down towards the crank sensor, and you've also got the cam sensor over there. We'll go down there in a minute just so you can see everything, but that's the split that you see over there where the heat shrink is. Then you're going to have the coil. This is obviously the left bank, so this is coil number 1, and everything is obviously labeled for you so you can see what it is, but that's coil 1 over there, and that breaks out there as well. Then the harness is going to run down along there. Then you're going to have another breakout over here, and that's going to have your coil 3 and your coil 5, as well as your cam sensor for your left bank cam sensor over there. All right, coming further down there, you've got your breakout over there, and there you're going to have your coil 7, again all labeled. You're going to have your gearbox harness which is coming out because you've got the R154, so we put all the plugs and everything on for you. You've then got your ground that comes and bolts into this M6 bolt over here. You've also got your sub harness that breaks out over there, and then also in here you've got your injector harness which breaks out over there to plug into this plug over here. That then goes under the intake manifold, and I've got the whole video on how to install that, just so you can watch that when you get to that particular part. But obviously you've got to take your intake off to put your sub harness in, which there will be pictures at the end. So if you wait to the end, you'll see there's pictures of how that looks underneath and how that's installed. And then I've got the video on how to install this. So you're going to do the sub harness first, then you're going to do injector harness. You'll see I've got P-clamps over here, so you've got like a little bolt hole that mounts over there on your 3UZ. You've also got one that bolts over there, and you'll see I've got a P-clamp over there just to hold it in place at the back here. And after that breakout, it carries on all the way down to this, where this P-clamp is, and it breaks out over here. Over this side, you've got a ground, which goes to the M6 bolt over there, okay? Then on the other side, you've got your coil number 8 coming out there. Then your harness runs along there. You'll have another breakout there for your cam sensor on your right bank. coil 6 and coil 4. Then it'll continue along there, and if you want you can also use some P-clamps over there just to hold that up there out of the way. Coming to the front, you're going to break out here as well. That's going to break off to your coolant temp sensor. It's going to break off to your throttle sub harness over there. It's also going to break off into your oil control valve, your coil number 2, again everything's labeled, and then your mass airflow sensor, which goes over there. We've given you plenty of length, so wherever you decide to put the mass airflow sensor, you should have plenty of room there. Then coming down here, we come to our breakout point over here. That then breaks out to the sub harness for the alternator. So I've done a video on how you can use the later generation 6-speed alternators, and we can just create you another little sub harness which you can buy from us, and then we can adapt it for the 4-pin style plug that goes on there. Then you've got your oil level, which we call MOL, which is the terminology Toyota use for it. So that's going to plug into your sump over there where your oil level sensor is. And then coming down here, you've got your lambda for your main O2s. We're just using the main O2s that are in the actual exhaust header themselves. So you've got this one on this side, and we'll go to the one on the other side in a minute. Okay, so that's all nice and straightforward. And then obviously your sub harness for your throttle, just while I'm here, you've got your drive-by-wire motor plug in there. Then over the other side it goes, and it goes over to your TPS plug over there. So I drag it over the top, you can drag it out over the bottom if you want to make it look a bit neater, whichever way you feel is the nicest. So coming back to here, as I said, we have a breakout over here where the cam sensor comes in. So that's the cam sensor over there on the front. There's a little mounting point over here you can use to mount the harness to, either with a P-clamp, or you can put a clip inside there, like a body panel clip or something, and just cable tie it to there. Coming down the front here, again, you've got little clips over there and over there, which hold the harness in place underneath there. All right. Then down here, there's a breakout just before this point over here, and what you're going to see going down into that hole, and then going through the hole over there, comes out to your crank sensor, which is over there. Now in our case, we've got the oil pressure switch coming out there. You've got the GS, so your oil filter housing comes more straight out like that, and your oil pressure switch is at the back here. So the oil pressure switch will just come out here and then go around the back. Also breaking out at the top here, we've got your aircon. So that can go straight into your aircon. Everything is wired up. Part of the testing, you'll see we tested the aircon is all working. And then the last little bit is the O2 plug, which makes its way all the way down there to the plug over there. Usually they used to come through the back of the exhaust over there, but we're trying to keep everything away from the heat. So now it comes straight down there and goes into there. Okay, obviously you would have aircon pump here, which is missing in our case. Right, so that's how the harness runs. It's sort of relatively straightforward. It's straight to the engine here, breakout for the front, make a little U shape that goes all the way around and finishes off there and makes its way down to the bottom to the alternator. So that's basically that. So hopefully that's nice and straightforward and simple. Shouldn't have any issues fitting that in over there. So what are we going to test today? We've got quite a list over here because it's a plug and play one. So to start off with just the ignition on, we're going to be testing the ambient temperature. So that means the little temperature gauge inside your car that tells you what the outside temp is. Now that relies on a sensor that is fitted to usually the crash bar. You see the little clip there, it's fitted to the crash bar. You need to make sure that's connected. If that's not connected, your ambient temperature is not going to work. Then we're going to check the charge light and oil pressure. So that's going to be on the physical cluster itself. We're going to see the oil light and the charge light coming up there. Then we're going to test the reverse circuit, and that's why I've got the IS300 clocks on, because they do a little beep when it goes into reverse, which the IS300 ones don't. So we use that just to make sure that the reverse circuit inside the vehicle is functioning as it should. Then we'll test the speedo. So in your case, if I remember correctly, yours was originally an auto converted to manual. Now the IS300s, which did come in a manual, we have wired up the speed sensor exactly like that. If yours was originally an auto and you haven't changed that around, so in other words, still taking the speed from the ABS, then that's no problem. You're not going to affect anything by plugging that in. It's just that the cluster doesn't have the pin going to the ECU box. It's coming straight from the ABS. But we have fitted that simply because if you did want to, in the future, for whatever reason, use that speed signal for something else, maybe you went with an aftermarket ECU and you wanted a speed signal, it's all plugged in, all the wires are there, so you can use that. And obviously the reverse, that's simple and straightforward enough without that you're not going to have reverse lights. All right, then we're going to test the OBD2 functionality. So in this case, we're using our Toyota Intelligent Tester here. This is plugged into your standard one over there. Now, obviously, excuse, this is a right-hand drive vehicle, yours is a left-hand drive vehicle, but everything is pretty much the same. You've got your little OBD2 diagnostic connector underneath there, so you can plug in exactly like you would as normal, and it's going to read that ECU, no problem. All the wiring is there. Right, then when we come to actually starting the engine up, the things we're going to be testing are obviously immobilizer removal. Well, if it starts up, the immobilizer is removed. The starter circuit, again, straightforward. If it starts up, we know the starter circuit is okay because we're going to be doing everything from the key inside the vehicle. We're going to look at the tacho signal. That's over there. Now, regarding the tacho signal, the 3UZs give out a 4-cylinder signal. We remap the MPX data. So all the data like the oil light, the charge light, the coolant temp, the ambient temp, everything is remapped in the ECU to transmit correctly. The only downside is that obviously we can't remap the signal coming from the rev counter. That's kind of hardwired in. So we've got this little device to adjust the RPM. I've adjusted it here, but it's super simple. You literally just pop this lid off. There's a little pot resistor in there. If you want to plug into an OBD2 machine, if you feel like it's off, I've got it as accurate as I can. But if you feel it's a little bit off, you can use your OBD2 machine, plug it in, hold it at like say 2000 RPM, just quickly adjust that and then get that to so dead on correct. And then you can just leave it like that and it'll be absolutely fine. All right. While we're looking at the tacho, we're also going to look at the coolant temp sensor. So the coolant temp is going to come through the cluster over here. So it's communicating directly from the ECU. We're then going to look at the ACIS or acoustic control induction system. Now that involves this little valve at the back here. Now I do also have a video. I know I'm referring to a lot of videos, but I do have a video on exactly how this works, what it does. Also a brief explanation of things you might be suffering from if it doesn't work. So yeah, just check this when you start up for the first time. This little valve should go down like that as soon as you start it up. Okay. Again, operation in a video, going into much more detail, actually show you inside a manifold and you can see exactly what's going on there. Drive-by-wire test, simple. As it says on the tin, we're literally just going to rev the engine with the pedal, making sure that that's working okay. Because obviously you've got your pedal harness coming out here, and then this is the long section that's obviously going to go inside your vehicle and plug into your pedal, okay? And then we're going to do the injectors and coils. Now what I mean by that, what I'm going to do is none of the injectors are fully plugged in. So I do apologize. Sometimes when I started up for the first time, one cylinder misfired, but they're not all plugged in. So all I'm going to basically do is run around and I'm going to unplug one at a time. And we're going to see the engine misfire as I unplug each one. That's going to let us know that all the cylinders are firing exactly as they should do, because this is a fully sequential ignition and injection engine. So if one of the injectors were not working, but if one of the coils were not working, then obviously we'd have a misfire on the engine. Perfect. Right, AC clutch. So we've wired up all the AC, so it's going to work exactly as it should. Now then, a few caveats. Number one, you have a pressure switch. Okay, he's angry. Right, so now we're going to do injectors and coils, so we're going to go around one by one. So we're going to do coil number 1, coil number 3, injector number 3, number 6, sorry, right bank. Okay, 6 again, do 8, go back to number 1. Press the AC button. Okay. Okay, you can hear the engine, the revs are climbing up as it's doing it as well. Alright, now we're going to do the oil control valves. So we're going to go in here. Okay, so that's bank 1. Go to bank 2. Okay. Let's go to trouble codes quickly. We'll see that we have got 0 codes. Okay. So I'm going to shut that down. Right, so it's simple as that, completely plug and play. You just jump in, turn your key and fire it over. All right, so everything is working as I expected. All the coils are firing as they should. Drive-by-wire works, the AC works, everything works for you. So it should be a really straightforward plug in, drive off. Things you need to do. At the back of your engine here, you'll see I've got this little cable here, so you should still have that on your one, and because it's an American model, it'll come out the right way. Little hint and tip for you guys, for the 3UZ, you see you have the same plastic. What you'll notice is you have a branch that comes out here, and you have a branch that comes out there. They use the same plastic for both left and right-hand drive vehicles. What's different is how this pops out. So, in right-hand drive vehicle, so I'm standing behind the engine, so I'm a right-hand drive, this is where the driver sits. You'll see that this goes up, because obviously that, well, it goes in the direction of where the battery is. So if you're in a right-hand drive vehicle, like here, see the battery's on the left-hand side, so this little thing that shoots up here is where the main cable will go, and it'll shoot up to the battery over here. If you're a left-hand drive, you'll see that the main power cable will just run along this channel over here, and then obviously come out to the battery, which will be over here. Okay, so that's a little tip for you. If you guys have that, you'll notice that the right-hand drive ones, the main power cable comes up there. Left-hand drive vehicles, the main power cable goes along here. Okay, right. So that's your main starter cable, which goes directly from there to your battery. It's bolted directly to your starter. In your case, I think you still have the old one, so you can just remove all the gubbins that's in there for like the knock sensors and the starter solenoid and all of that, because that's all built new for you now there. Next thing you're going to want to do is your alternator. So you can see here I've got the alternator main cable on there, which runs down there. We've got the plug is part of the engine harness that controls it, but the main one goes from there. And in your case, it's going to run to your fuse box. Now again, this is a right-hand drive vehicle, but you have the same fuse box. You just got it over here. So you also be a really nice short run, because as you can see, obviously the alternator is on that side. So alternator is going to be over here. So all you're going to do is run from your fuse box straight down, straight to your alternator. Little L-shape sort of thing on here that you would have on your IS300 originally. You should be able to repurpose that. All right. And then basically you just plug that all in, that goes into the fuse box, they go straight to the alternator. So those are the two powers that you have to take care of, obviously on your side, that are not built as part of the main harness. So you got your main starter power cable and you got your main alternator cable, which are bolted onto there. Earthing. You'll see basically that effectively where your battery is, so in your case on this side, the negative of the battery is closest to the outside of the vehicle, or at least it should be, and then it runs from the negative underneath the battery, bolts to the chassis, runs down, and then bolts on there. So usually that's how it runs, but any way you look at it, find that negative from your IS300, and then you're going to bolt that just directly onto the block. Okay, so that'll be the main earth for your engine, and that goes straight down to the block, and that's obviously what your starter and everything runs through. Now what Toyota did as well, as you'll see on the back of here, you've got one hole there and you've got one hole there. So that's an M8 and that's an M6. Over here you've got an M6, you've got an M8, you've got another M8. So basically what I normally tend to tell people to do is, usually on the ISs you have like a little earthing point at the back here, and it had a little earth strap that went from there to the engine. Stick it on. Toyotas love earths. So what I normally do is I'll take one of these M8 holes over here, or on this side over here, and I'll basically take that and take it straight to the firewall. You do usually have an earth that goes on the gearbox as well, and that bolts to the physical chassis as well, just comes straight from the gearbox. So one of these main bolts over here, straight from there to the chassis. By all means, if you've got it, stick it on. You're not going to do anything wrong. The more earths you can have, the better it is. So absolutely fine. So I tend to find that those are the one. The two ones that I normally put on is the one from the straight from the negative of the battery to the block, and then the one from the cylinder head here to the firewall, and I tend to find that's usually absolutely fine, and you shouldn't have any issues with that. Just make sure they're clean. So this is aluminium. As you know, with aluminium, over time, it starts to go rusty, and you get this lovely white powder, which makes its way on the aluminium. So I normally say to people, take a piece of emery cloth. Don't know if you call it something different in America, but a little bit of sort of that, anyway, emery cloth. Just give this a good wipe down before you bolt it down. Give yourself a really clean surface to work from. Same thing applies to the block. They are aluminium. They do get all aluminium rust and white powder and stuff on them. Just literally take your emery cloth, wipe it all off, then bolt the earth to it. Happy days, and you should be no problem. I also tend to find it's a good time to look underneath your battery where the main earth goes to the actual chassis itself. Obviously, I've not seen, well, I've not played with a left-hand drive vehicle before. I'm in the UK, we're all right-hand drive. But what I tend to find is it's a wonderful place for water to come and sit in when it makes its way around the battery tray, and you get a lot of rust coming on there. So I always find it's a good time while you're busy with everything, just lift up the battery, check and make sure that earth is still right. Check and make sure there's not an absolute crap ton of rust underneath there. If there is, unbolt it, clean it all up, put it all back. Get yourself a can of primer paint and just spray it on there. No one's ever going to see it. It's underneath the battery tray. But as long as it's protected and you get a really nice clean earth. All right, because earthing is a big problem with Toyotas. They love earth, and if you start messing around with earth, they give you a headache. All right. So other than that, that's everything you need to do. It should be really, really nice and simple and straightforward. Everything is labeled for you. Watch the video on how to install the injector and ACIS harness underneath. It's again a very, very quick job. Look at the pictures where the sub harness goes underneath and how everything is plugged in. But again, even everything underneath is labeled. So you've got, it's labeled as KNK1 or NOC1. So remember on this one, this is bank 1. So KNK1 is this knock sensor on this side. This is bank 2 or the right hand side. So that's KNK2. Starter solenoid, really simple. There's only one of them. You just plug it straight into the starter there. And obviously you're going to take care of the power cable there. Okay. Right. So again, hopefully really nice and easy for you to install. So what we're going to do now is we're going to get this all boxed up, get it over to you back in America so you can get your car running. And for anybody else, if you do have any questions or anything related to that, please let me know. Fire in the comments or message us on Facebook. I've actually just got reaching out my wife to answer those messages because there's loads coming through. So she'll try and get as much information out of you as she can before you speak to me. But yeah, so again, any questions, please feel free to ask. But Chris, let's get this boxed up to you. And for everybody else, thanks for watching and we'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.